Good evening. Welcome to the January 9th, 2023 meeting of the East Penn School District Board of School Directors. Everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Apologize for the brief delay in starting the meeting tonight. Next on the agenda are requests to address the board. I have one from Ms. Shannon Matrunik to talk about GP track removal at EHS.
Thank you. Like my colleagues, I am still reeling from the last board meeting, but it's not from the 3-6 vote. We left feeling disrespected as professionals by hurtful comments and the deafening silence of no one coming to our defense. I personally can't get comments out of my head like culture of low expectations and below level. Students in GP classes work hard to push themselves. They write research papers, they read the same works of literature, but they do have more support, special ed accommodations, and a pace more appropriate for their needs. When kids are told they can't achieve, the students themselves have low expectations of themselves. But who is telling our students they can't achieve? People here have not observed us in action. Encourage and motivate is what we do. All students deserve high-level instruction. Absolutely. Is anyone under the impression that teachers decrease the quality of instruction for GP classes? My recent evaluation from the week before Christmas states, when interacting with students, she was encouraging and patient and very supportive, but she did make sure students understood the work that had to be completed. Ms. P required the thesis statements to be approved by her before students moved on to other aspects of the project, but she also emphasized that they had the opportunity to make revisions and edits, which would provide the opportunity to improve grades. She explained her suggested edits and asked for student input during these conferences. This is a very nice lesson with a great deal of student support and encouragement. That is a GP class. We work hard for all students at all levels. Students will be challenged to perform better. Also, our teachers will be challenged. Is the implication that we are not challenging students and pushing them to achieve at higher levels than when they enter our classrooms? Is the implication that teachers are not challenging themselves as we address post-pandemic student needs, a new curriculum, a new schedule, new exams? Seniors in my GP class are challenged by coursework, are pursuing tech careers at LCTI, work many hours at their jobs, and are dealing with intense personal situations, overcoming the death of a parent, family losses, divorces, trauma of a cancer diagnosis, struggles of being adopted, a suicidal sibling, not living with family, a sibling born at 23 weeks and navigating their trach and medical equipment, and so many mental health struggles that our school does not have the manpower to address. Eliminating GP will certainly challenge some students to perform at a higher level, but will they have access to effective and well-planned resources that will allow them to reach that level? It feels like we're being asked to do the impossible. Maintain academic rigor as we differentiate for 30 students at once, yet administer common assessments. So many contradictions, so many unanswered questions. We're still waiting for the implementation plan beyond the to-do list from November. Teachers have a lot to say, but as you can see, what's the point? My voice may not matter in making decisions, but I will always be an advocate for kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matrunik. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the December 12th, 2022 board minutes. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions? Seeing none, Ms. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bowen?
Aye.
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Falegi?
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Dr. Whitney?
Aye.
Dr. Levinson?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Next on the agenda is the district update. Dr. Campbell.
Thank you. I want to reflect on a few exciting accomplishments of our students that happened before the holiday. On December 20th, 5 of our high school students competed at Code Jam competition, which was held at DeSales University. Our students competed against teams from Lehigh, Northampton, and Berks counties, and I'd like to congratulate Matt Whitmer and Hugh Wilkes for their first place win, which if you go back and check out the competition from 2021, both of those young men were were excelled at the competition in previous years as well. I was also really excited on December 22nd, our high school art department held an alumni day in which they invited our past alumni from Emmaus High School to share their college and career experiences with our current art students. And we were able to visit in our cafeteria as our East Penn graduates made us very proud of all of their accomplishments, and again, really shared their work with their peers as well. In case you're not aware, we always encourage our alumni to continue to keep us updated on their successes, and we do have an alumni page that's linked directly to our district homepage where we share all that exciting news. Speaking of alumni, we'd like to congratulate Marley Waite from the Emmaus High School class of 2019. You may have recently noted that she was awarded one of the most prestigious scholarships that's available to college students, specifically Marley, who is a cadet of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, was one of 40 recipients nationwide of the Marshall Scholarship, which will allow her continued study after her 2023 graduation. Moving on to other news in the district, I did want to provide our community, specifically the Willow Lane community, with an update of the crossing guard situation. Specifically, the township did approve a budget in December, and this budget does include the $26,000 for the purpose of the East Penn Crossing Guard program. This money was secured through a grant process through the township. And so as a result of the fact that it is a single payment through a grant process, the township has shared with us that there will no longer be a need for a written agreement between the township and the district. And so I just wanted to share that information publicly so that the Willow Lane community was not wondering why there was not an updated agreement. And I also wanted to share that we're very appreciative of our colleagues in Lower Macungie Township who continue to financially support the Crossing Guard program. Some announcements of exciting news or events that are coming up in the district. Specifically, later this month, through the Caron Educational Alliance, the Caron Foundation, partnering with members of the East Penn team, will be presenting a program on substance abuse and substance use disorders. It's a 1-hour live presentation on January 25th from 12 to 1 p.m. It's a live presentation, but it's available via Zoom. So again, hopefully convenient for individuals to participate, perhaps over a break that they might be able to take during the day. It's available, or it's intended, I should say, for caregivers, guardians of middle and high school students, and certainly we'll focus on research that shows different ways to help prevent substance use and abuse. Another exciting opportunity coming up is for our Emmaus High School students, specifically those who might be interested in applying to LCTI's Animal Science program. The Animal Science program is an intensive dual enrollment program designed for high school seniors who plan to pursue professions in animal science or veterinary medicine. It's a new program at LCTI. The original application deadline was Friday, January 6th. I'm excited to say that that application deadline has been extended to Thursday, February 16th. And so I encourage Emmaus High School students who might be interested to learn more about the program to go to the LCTI webpage. You can also access that information from our high school webpage. The month of January is a busy one as we begin our 8th to 9th grade transition activities on January 10th, so that's tomorrow night. Our Emmaus High School is offering a guidance information night for parents and guardians of incoming 9th graders. The event is held in person at the Emmaus High School auditorium. It will include an informational session in terms of the 8th to 9th grade transition process, course selection, becoming familiar with life at Emmaus High School, and then we will also run tours of the building throughout the evening. We do ask families who are who are interested in attending to please check the high school website for information. We've attempted to take our incoming ninth grade students and break that class up into smaller subgroups so that we can have more intimate conversations with families. In addition, we've already begun to meet with eighth grade students to discuss the course selection process and share the amazing variety of programs to which they'll have access at Emmaus High School. And finally, PSBA has identified or designated January as School Board Director Recognition Month, and it's really a time for our communities to celebrate and recognize the vital work that our school board directors do on behalf of our students, our schools, and our families. I recognize the time that a school board director devotes to the complex responsibilities of what it means to be a board member, to adopt new curriculum and programs, adopt policy, vote on budgets, ensure and evaluate student safety, as well as reviewing hiring decisions. And as locally elected officials, our board of directors are invested in our school communities. And on behalf of our East Penn administration, staff, and students, I just wanted to take a moment tonight to express our gratitude to our board members for their dedication, time, and efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Champagne?
Yes, thank you. Regarding the crossing guard program, as I understand it, it's a single grant for this coming year. So is it something that we then have to renew every year with the township, or does the township apply for the grant? Who's got the ball in terms of making sure that the cost-sharing arrangement continues forward?
The responsibility will be on the district to apply annually for the grant, and the township has provided us with the information regarding the application process and timeline and notification process.
And is the grant a state grant, or is it something that, where's the actual funding? That's what I wasn't clear.
I believe the funding is through the township, so it is a set-aside set of funds that they've identified for the purpose of these community grants that.
Okay, so it's part of a community grant program that they've
Yes.
established, and this they may or may not choose this crossing guard program as one of the recipients. Is that correct?
It is not a guarantee every single year, but we will certainly continue to apply.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is personnel. I may have a motion to approve the personnel items.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns from the board?
I have one.
Dr. Whitney?
Couldn't help but notice that there is a leave of one of the crossing guards, Willow Lane, on the agenda here today, and I just wondered, since it's relatively new that they are employees of the district, I know we're pretty well staffed, but will there be a replacement for that person? Will there be a substitute in place?
Yes, we have a sub.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Whitney. Any additional questions? All right, seeing none, Ms. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Falegi?
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Dr. Whitney?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowen?
Aye.
Dr. Levinson?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is business operations. If there are no objections, I'd like to take items A, B, C, D, and E together. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Dr. Campbell, did you have some words for related to item C?
I do, thank you. I just wanted to take a moment and express our gratitude for the scholarship that has been established, again, to support students at Emmaus High School. The funds for this scholarship have been donated in honor of David Stortz. David Stortz graduated from Emmaus High School in 1964. He served in the Air Force for a period of time and then pursued a bachelor's degree in economics from Muhlenberg and started a certified public accounting firm, Stortz and Associates, in 1979, which is, again, the organization that is supporting this scholarship, or yes, this particular scholarship fund. So just wanted to express our gratitude to our community partner for their work in supporting our students.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Champagne?
Yeah, just on items D and E, just maybe clarification. One is a masonry restoration, which we're approving, and the other one's a concrete restoration, which we're rejecting. Is there a reason why, and what, was it just cost, or was there some scope of work change that we ended up doing that we're rejecting all those bids? I'm just curious.
Good evening. So the masonry restoration at Jefferson is for the exterior of the building
Right.
to make sure it's sealed properly to keep any kind of weather related moisture from coming in. With the with the concrete restoration, that was more along the lines of the concrete walk in the front and retention walls that, while not a safety issue, are not very appealing. So I was actually hoping to combine both projects at the same time or complete both projects at the same time. But we felt that it was necessary to separate them because it's two different trades. The concrete was $50,000 over budget. And at that time, I thought to myself, it's better to use funding that we need for critical infrastructure like HVAC instead of spending $150,000 on the concrete.
Okay. So it's two separate contracts, totally different scopes of work.
Absolutely,
And it
correct.
sounds like the concrete restoration is more aesthetic
Correct.
than it was a necessity that had to be dealt with.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nushko. Any additional questions?
Just one
Mr. Dr. Whitney?
on the scholarship. Do we know yet what the scholarship will go toward? In other words, what the criteria for this scholarship will be, these two seniors?
I don't have that information, but certainly we can bring it back to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Allen, please call the roll.
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Falegi?
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Dr. Whitney?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowen?
Aye.
Dr. Levinson?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Next, I'd like to get a motion on item F, performance-based energy savings agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments, concerns from the board? Mr.
Go ahead.
So
Jankowski?
is the concept for this agreement for future potential savings in energy consumption based on the mechanics of this? Or why is this called a energy savings agreement?
Yeah, we appreciate the questions, and now that the item is on the table, what we would prefer is Mr. Anushko is prepared just to give a high-level introduction to this concept for the board and the community tonight, as well as to answer any questions.
Thank you. Again, originally the Guaranteed Energy Savings Act, I think, started in 2010. And that was Pennsylvania legislation encouraging school districts to find a way to save energy and then roll that money back into capital reserves, the energy that you save, that funding, and try to roll it back into capital reserves so you can continue with renovations throughout the buildings. Some of the benefits of an Energy Savings Act or contract is there's no change orders. There's a single point of accountability. When we normally go out for an RFP, you might have an electrical contractor, mechanical contractor, HVAC contractor, and they each have their own individual contracts. With this, you have one point of contact. They are accountable for all of those entities. The other portion of that is that there's a 20-year guarantee that the energy savings that they are expecting to have will be there throughout the length of that contract. Now, they don't give you a dollar value for all of that. You can't guarantee the dollar value because you're looking at the consumption part of it. As we all know, the energy costs fluctuate. Right now, they're just fluctuating upward. So the dollar numbers can vary, but it's the kilowatts that we're really trying to control. So, like I previously stated, we normally would have gone out with an RFP, request for proposal from architectural and engineering firms, and we did do that. They came back, we looked at some of those proposals, they were all averaging about a 7% rate based on the overall cost of the project. So the overall cost was going to be $4 million, those fees were up there around close to $300,000. So Mr. Saul, myself, and Dr. Campbell, we talked about it. We said this might be a good opportunity to look into a GISA project and get an ESCO involved to see if it is a different avenue that the district can take to find other ways of completing projects. So that was in May of 2022. In July, we did a scoping audit. That is to look at our energy use, see if it's actually going to be practical, see what we might be able to save, and is it worth our time to try to go down this road with this type of act? We felt it was. So in July to September, the scoping audit was done. In October, we put out a public ad for requests for qualifications of ESCO companies. McClure was the only respondent. I checked the references of McClure with various school districts in the valley. They've worked with multiple school districts. Salisbury, Northern Lehigh, Fleetwood, they all highly recommended McClure. They did this many times with them, and they said they were absolutely great to work with. It was a seamless project, and they had no qualms about using them again. In October, that was done, and then November, December, McClure completed the investment grade audit. That's where they dug really into it, said, okay, this is what we look at, this is what we can complete for you, and this is what our savings will be. Based upon that, the contract you see tonight is based on those findings. So that's the overview. So if you have any additional questions as to why or how, I'd be more than happy to answer them. If I can't, Alyssa Wingenfield, Senior Account Executive and Professional Engineer from McClure, is in the audience. She can help answer some questions as well.
So you said, so there's a guarantee of energy savings from this? What is the impact of that guarantee to what's the value of that guarantee?
I think on the energy savings side, let me just take a look at this. Over 20 years, energy savings, $493,198.
Now, does that require any specific actions by the school district in order to achieve those, or is that all coming out of this?
To achieve those savings?
To achieve the savings.
To
the
achieve
energy
those savings, all the work that's being completed out of this project, that's how we're achieving those savings. HVAC replacements, LED lighting, and so on and so forth.
Okay. And then what about ongoing maintenance and upkeep? How does that fall within the contract?
That part is in the operational savings, where we're not paying the money to replace ballasts, replace light fixtures, so there is some numbers allotted there for that. But overall, we really were looking at this type of contract as a way of going about getting a contractor we know is capable of doing it, has done it in the past, and is one single point of contact.
Well,
I'm sorry, Mr. Champagne.
having worked with McClure before, I would agree that they're probably one of the leading companies in the state to do these contracts. So as my understanding is that, you're the two elements that are going to be the energy saving element. There's other projects within the scope of the agreement, like clock replacement and a few other things that are not energy related. So you got HVAC and you got LED lighting. So on the HVAC side, it's basically a consumption change, right? So you've baselined the consumption, and you're saying, I'm going to save X over that period of time. And as I read the contract, I'm trying to make sure I got this right. So 1 year after the agreement is in place, you're going to basically look at the difference between what you had projected the savings to be and the actual, right?
Yes.
So if the savings come in less than, McClure steps up and makes a payment, and they make that payment for the life of the contract.
Or they make corrections to the equipment the way it's running.
Oh, yes, and get you back to the point where you will receive the savings.
Correct.
And the same thing is on the lighting side. You got, so many foot candles are supposed to be on each of the areas, and and with that, so many, watts you're drawing, kilowatt hours, and either you see that savings or you don't. And again, there's fixes on that if they don't meet the number. But let's say that they are unable to retrofit or rectify the deficiency. So they have to pay out over that 20-year period of time.
That is the way it's worded.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, who stands behind that? Is there a bond behind that? Is there some kind of performance guarantee? Who financially, how are we sure that we're going to see that payment for 20 years? Because 20 years is a long time. And McClure's been around for a very long period of time. I understand that, well over 100 years. But that doesn't mean they're going to be here tomorrow. So is there some kind of escrow account that the money goes in? What assurances do we have that the money that we anticipate to make up any shortfall in savings is going to be there? Because otherwise we haven't achieved anything.
I'm going to ask Alyssa to come up and help answer that question, but I want to just say it's not so much the dollar value, it's the kilowatt hours that you're saving.
Oh, I understand that, but that still translates into money.
It does.
Yeah,
It does, absolutely.
Great, we're saving the kilowatt hours, but if we don't see the actual payment because of a shortfall in the savings we anticipated in kilowatt hours, we haven't achieved all we're hoping to achieve. And that's why I'm just wondering who stands behind the payment and how do we ensure that the payment's going to be there for the 20-year, because 20-year contract's a long time.
Correct. So, hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. So, for most of these contracts, many school districts only elect to do 1-year measurement and verification. We also have never missed the guarantee on a school project. The reason for that is we are very conservative with our calculations. So we're only showing you about 80% of the energy calculations we think we will receive. So in year 1, we will produce a report that will measure and verify the savings that we predicted. In that year, we're projecting 18,000. So if there would be a shortfall, we would come back the next year and try again to hit those savings. And we'll continue to do that until those savings are hit and the district elects to stop the measurement and verification process. In this contract, we've included 1 year of M&V, at which point at the end of that year, the district can elect to continue the measurement and verification process for a fee, or they can choose to terminate. Most districts terminate after year 1 because a lot of the changes we're making are asset changes, meaning they're not going to start using more energy down the road. So if you prove it in year 1, you're going to continue to see that in years 2 through 20. And McClure, we've been around for 69 years, so we've been around a long time. So I hope that gives you some comfort too that, but no, we don't have like an insurance policy or anything.
There's nothing standing behind your obligation if there's a shortfall.
Correct.
Okay, so that's a risk that the district has to assess and decide if they want to take long-term. Steve, when you looked at this, I mean, the ESCO, I like the ESCO concept because it wraps everything, but you're paying a premium for that because they're taking some risk to ensure that the energy savings are going to be there. And it seemed to imply that if we were to break this apart and just did the HVAC component separately and the lighting component separately, they would actually cost more than what we're seeing under this agreement? Or would, if we had bid the HVAC separately, would we have seen a change in terms of the cost? Would it have been a lower cost?
So one of the things that I looked at to evaluate the dollar value of the contract,
Yeah, that's what I'm
I
trying to
went
get
back to the KCBA study, and underneath the facilities, they had line items for all these different items at McCungy. When I total those up, it came to $4,293,000. So if you add 7% for inflation, that dollar value would then go up to almost 4.6 million.
Right.
So this contract now is 4.4. So it's within the realm of what we originally anticipated through KCBA.
Okay, because I guess what I'm thinking about is if we were to install the same equipment under a separate HVAC contract, and assuming the installation is done properly, we would have realized those savings and not had to pay any premium for any kind of guarantee. Right? Same thing with the lighting. If we had installed the lighting under someone who's, Bick McClure again, they just installed the lighting, but they didn't wrap it long-term and guarantee the savings. We're going to see those savings if we do it correctly anyway, because it's a reduction in,
Absolutely.
what I'm trying to get at is, do we think the premium that we're paying for the 20-year guarantee of savings, which we should realize or could realize had we just built it ourselves, is it worth it in your estimation?
I do. I think it's worth it because the premium also guarantees who's doing the job. If we would take it out for an RFP, you have to take a low bidder.
Okay,
And I can't guarantee that that person or that company is going to have the same qualifications.
okay. All right, thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Champagne. Mr. Smith?
Yeah, at the risk of oversimplifying a complicated contract, as a layperson not being in the energy sector like some of my colleagues, I guess I'm listening to some of the questions that Mr. Champagne asked, and I'm wondering if, again, at the risk of oversimplifying, we're saving on kilowatt hours, so it's not a business structure. We're not cutting out the middleman. It's literally consumption of energy as measured, by kilowatt hours. So is there, I don't know, 2 or 3 quick and dirty ways that you can say, this is what we do in this contract that over the next 20 years is going to guarantee that savings that we otherwise wouldn't be able to do on our own. Like, so what is it in the capturing of those kilowatt hours, that savings, what makes the company so special and able to do what they're doing?
I don't want to say that McClure is so special in doing what they're doing. I'd rather look at it as this is a way for the district to complete a project, save energy, and also include other aspects of the project that are not energy savings and wrap it up into one overall project. So we will save the kilowatt hours no matter what, like Mr. Champagne said. You put LED lighting in, you're going to save kilowatt hours. You put in a new HVAC system that is ducted through the ceiling and distributed across the classroom instead of blowing from one side of the classroom to the other, you're going to save kilowatt hours. So you're guaranteed that no matter what we do, you're going to save those kilowatt hours. So I don't want to say that there is a magic reason to have McClure as the contract. But I do firmly believe that by doing it this way, we can accomplish more than just saving energy or saving a certain dollar value.
I think one of the other benefits is, like you said, is you get, McClure's on the job for 20 years. You're going to get their attention because they've got an obligation to ensure that those savings accrue to the district. And if, something does in the first year kind of not work the way it is supposed to, it's McClure's best interest to fix that versus paying out over 20 years. So they're going to be more incentivized to come in and retrofit or do whatever it takes to ensure that we actually see those savings, because no one wants to be on the hook for a 20-year obligation. And I think that's one of the benefits. Plus, like you said, you're wrapping it all into one. It's like an EPC contract. You've got engineering, procurement, and construction. You're taking all that risk and you're putting it off on McClure. The district doesn't take the risk then if something doesn't fit, between the two systems or any of the systems. So that risk is shifted to McClure and not to the district. Whereas if you bid it in individual packages, you've got the risk of making sure that it's integrated. Plus, you've got the risk of managing all of those contracts separately. And you, like you said, there are no cost overruns. This is a guaranteed price. So it's on McClure's back if there's something that goes wrong or they've got cost escalation, then they're eating that and we're not taking that risk. So I think that's from my perspective, that's the benefits you see from an ESCO kind of approach to things. And McClure, like I said, has got a great reputation in the business, and they've done it for not only schools, but they've done it for a number of other major industries in the area. So I feel good. I feel good about it. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for the
you for
additional
answering the
comment.
question.
Mr. Byrd.
I read the contract, and I applaud the district for looking into this situation. I think it's a very good contract. I think some of the comments by colleagues about the guarantee of the pricing and the contract and the work that we're going to be able to roll into that is going to be a big benefit to the district. I applaud the district and the administrator for working on that. A couple of questions. One thing in the scope of the work, I found out the boilers would not be replaced, and they're 2003. What is the life of those boilers, or what is it? Is there any saving there?
The boilers, the chiller was replaced 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. The boilers, I believe, are only about 15 years old, so we should be able to get another 10 years out of them because they're not used 24 hours, 7 days a week. So we should be able to get a nice length of time out of those boilers yet.
Okay, thank you. Another question I had too, is there any grants we get from our power supplier as we implement these kilowatt savings?
I'm not sure about the grant, but I know there's the Act 129, which is incorporated in this, where you get money back from, I believe it's PP&L for changing that to LED. So that's incorporated into this. That is listed as one of the savings measures, but I don't know of any grants.
Any HVAC opportunities also?
As far as grants or?
Grants or incentives back from the power company?
Well, it's what's interesting, even when we replaced the chiller 2 years ago, to try to prove what you're saving for the Act 129, you need all kinds of data up front to give to them, and we don't have that data from up front. So the Act 129 was harder to accomplish when it came to replacing a chiller or an HVAC unit.
One other question, is there any opportunity for the district to go out and to negotiate a lower kilowatt rate than what we get from our current supplier?
Well, what the district does is we go through, it used to be Provident Energy, they changed their name, but they do a whole consortium for multiple schools. They take it out for multiple bids, and they show you what the pricing is across the board. Instead of going to one company and asking for the price, Provident will go out and they get about 10 or 12 energy companies to give us a price on the generation part of it. And that's the lowest price. The lowest price they get is the lowest price we go with. And usually it's a 2 to 3 year contract. That is due this coming June.
Well, thank you. I applaud the district for the great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. Any additional questions, comments? Dr. Whitney.
Yeah, I just wanted to, as I'm reading through the scope of work, obviously the HVAC and the lighting improvements speak for themselves, I think, and then it started to feel a little bit to me like a kitchen sink list. And so can you just speak a little bit to some of the other items here?
Sure.
I mean, I see the safety and security issues, but then we get to things like basketball hoops. I mean, are these things that are, all considered sort of urgent work for Macungie Elementary, and do we feel like it's good value to put all of these items into the scope of work for this?
So when we discussed this with the staff at Macungie Elementary, the principal and the staff members themselves, as we walked through the rooms, we listened to what they thought was important. As far as an educational, from the programming side of it, in their classrooms, they have old technology smart boards. They're not smart anymore because they're from like 99, 2000. So they're not really used as a smart board. We're using Apple TVs and monitors, and we're going to take those down and put whiteboards up to project onto them. So that is the current wave of technology. So that was one thing that was requested. The clock system, we have been having issues with the clocks throughout the district for the last couple of years. It was on the capital list numerous times. So the clock system being replaced is a priority. Plus, on top of that, we are putting up the message board into the clock system. So if there is a lockdown, it will come across that message board that there's a lockdown. So from that perspective, it made sense to put that into this at that time as well. The basketball hoops, yeah, that kind of goes to the far reach. That was a request by, I believe, the principal and the physical education teachers. Right now they are cranks. So they just asked if it's something we can incorporate can we do it?
Great. And as a parent of a basketball player, I fully appreciate the need working basketball hoops. But just overall, the question, we feel like this is a good value as opposed to taking care of these things individually to put them all into this contract, that we're getting good monetary value for those.
I do believe we're getting good monetary value, and I also believe the timeline that the constraints we're under to try to get it done in 8 weeks over a summer, that is probably the most we can get accomplished. There were other things that were on the list and that could have continued, but we'll just have to do those at another time.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Whitney. Any additional questions? I did have the question about the timetable, so we're looking to do this for this summer.
This summer, correct? As soon as school's out and before school starts in fall.
Okay. An ambitious list, but again, I guess we're relying on the expertise of McClure to coordinate this properly. I think the other point I wanted to make, and I don't think it was said, was the capital allocation for this project was already planned for, was it not?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said the capital funds that we're committing to this project was already part of our capital investment plan, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Originally, it was labeled as two different line items. So we made it into one line item to take care of the mechanical aspects of it. And then we'll have to do another line item in the future for the cosmetics of the building.
Okay. All right, thank you. There's nothing further. Ms. Allen, will you please call the roll vote?
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Falegi?
Aye.
Jankowski?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Dr. Whitney?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowen?
Aye.
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Dr. Levinson?
Aye. Thank you, Ms. Allen. The final item under business operations is item G, agreement of sale. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Are there any questions, comments, concerns from the board? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Falegi?
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Dr. Whitney?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowen?
Aye.
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Dr. Levinson?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Next item on the agenda is curriculum. If there are no objections, I'd like to take items A and B together. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions, concerns from the board? Seeing none, Ms. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Jankowski?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Dr. Whitney?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowen?
Aye.
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Falegi?
Aye.
Dr. Levinson?
Aye. Thank you, Ms. Allen. Moving on to other educational entities, I believe we have a report from the Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit from Dr. Whitney.
Yes, thank you. Just a brief report. Board of Directors, CLIU, met on December 19th. We got a report back from the Carbon Lehigh Special Needs Children's Foundation, the foundation arm of the IU. Their holiday gift basket sale netted $5,000, which was a record for them, which was wonderful news. They've also announced the date of their annual golf outing, which is also a fundraiser, June 20th. So if you're a golfer, which I am not, mark that date on your calendar. And I'll provide more information as that comes around. And the other good news from the foundation is that they are certifying a facility dog for the Lehigh Learning and Achievement School, one of the 3 schools that the IU operates. This is a grades 3 through 12 school. This would be a support dog for emotional support for the students. They've already identified the dog. It's being trained. Since it's the Lehigh Learning and Achievement School, or LLAS, the dog has been named last course, and it's a very exciting development. And they did mention that they consulted with folks in our district who work with the therapy dogs, one of whom I see is on the cover of the Stinger this month, to get some advice and guidance and best practices on that. But the teachers at the school will be caretakers and handlers, and they're already in training to do that. So that's going to be a really wonderful addition to that particular school. And I think they're hoping to expand that to all the IU-operated schools at some point. And then just one item of note from the from the meeting itself, the general operating budget, as I mentioned in my last report, it was finalized. This will be coming before us for a vote soon. And again, the overall district contribution to that operating budget will remain the same as it has for, I think, 12 years now, which is really remarkable and reflects their budgeting priorities. And also, given the numbers, the final numbers, I believe we'll see a slight reduction in the East Penn requested contribution to that operating budget that we'll see for approval soon. So that's even better news from our standpoint. And then finally, the executive director search is underway. That position is going to be posted here in about a week. It will be open for a couple of weeks. We're still on a timetable to get a new executive director for the IU hired to start on August 1st. So fairly accelerated time frame, but we're excited to get to work and get some leadership in the IU. So that's my report.
All right, thank you, Dr. Whitney. Are there any questions or comments for Dr. Whitney? Okay, thank you again. Next is a report from the LCTI JOC member.
Yes,
Mr.
thank you,
Champagne.
Dr. Levinson. The LCTI Joint Operating Committee met on Wednesday, December 24th. We had an organizational meeting followed by a regular session. The results of the organizational meeting was that David Hine of Parkland was reappointed chairperson of the JOC, and I was reappointed as the vice chairperson of the JOC. We also approved the annual 2023 meeting calendar. During the regular session, Dr. Greenwald and her administrative team gave a number of reports. We successfully finalized the contract with the LCTI Education Support Personnel Association, which was a big win for both sides. The LCTI Comprehensive Plan was reviewed, and it was also posted on the website for public comment for this month. We will be looking at it again in January. We also had an update on some of the security threats that were, making the news, and how both of the effectiveness from an operational standpoint, internally and externally, was looked at and can be improved to help us deal with any future problems. The counselor and special education meetings occurred on December 8th. All districts at LCTI participated in the meeting. There was a review of all the programs that are available to students, and it talked about the online application process, which is now the preferred and, well, I guess the only way for students to enroll at LCTI in terms of getting access to the programs. We also approved return of excess revenues from the 2021-22 budget in the amount of $287,000 from the general operating budget and $137,000 from the academic center. East Penn's share of that will be roughly $78,000, and that will appear as a credit on our January 23rd invoice. The budget review process has been delayed until September, till this month, due to the unfortunate inability for the superintendents and the executive committee to meet and review the budget. So we'll see the updated budget at the end of January. We also approved the 2021-22 Independent Auditor Financial and Compliance Report. We also approved a chiller replacement in the amount of $591,000 for the equipment, and with a total budget of $642,000. Some good news on the open house. There were approximately 3,900 individuals that went through the open house, and that's a great thing for students and parents. The online application mailers will be sent to 8th and 9th grade students starting today through the end of March. So 8th and 9th grade students should be on the lookout for that. And as Dr. Campbell mentioned, the animal science program, they are adding a second section to that program because it is so popular. So again, it's for seniors only. And finally, we approved an updated health and safety plan. That is my report.
Thank you, Mr. Champagne. Mr. Jankowski.
Were authorities ever able to determine the source of those threats?
I believe they were. We didn't get a full debrief on all of the things that were going on, but yes, they were able to identify certain individuals that were involved.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Champagne. Moving on, there are no other items. So in terms of announcements, we did hold an executive session this evening where we talked about real estate, confidential matters and negotiations. Our next, I'm sorry, we're going to be closed on Monday, January 16th. And our next regular board meeting is on Monday, January 23rd, in this room at 7:30 PM. With no other business, I'd like to take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Meeting adjourned. Have a good evening.